International Superstar Soccer was released for the PlayStation 2 in the year 2000 and was also released in Japan also under the J-League franchise, and it got a later port in 2001 on the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, and it was also the first game or the first installment in the ISS Pro series to feature fully licensed teams, and it carries on the lineage of the iconic ISS Pro franchise from the early days of the PS1 that would later go on to become the Pro Evolution Soccer series. But during the earlier periods of the PlayStation's life cycle, while the Pro Evo series had started to take flight in 2001, the International Superstar Soccer series itself was still being created for a number of years until it eventually dropped off, so that Konami could just primarily focus on the Pro Evolution Soccer series. And for many, you would think that it's the same kind of game. Essentially it is in some ways, but in other ways it's not, because again the ISS series does focus more on, especially on the PS2, it's not as realistic compared to the Pro Evolution Soccer. The Pro Evolution Soccer series tends to focus more towards simulation style football, whereas the International Superstar Soccer games focused more on arcade, well, primarily on the PS2 anyway. On the PS1 it was kind of a varying mix. It was both arcade and then later went into simulation, but with the PS2 it kind of deviated. So I think at that point Konami were still kind of up in arms about what way they wanted the name of the franchise to go moving forward. So it was still considered as International Superstar Soccer for that period, and it later ended with International Superstar Soccer 3 that was released later in the PlayStation 2's life cycle, and then it just primarily focused from the Pro Evo or PES series thereafter. And with this being an early soccer game on the PlayStation 2, it was actually one of the first soccer games to be seen on the PS2, and it definitely plays more like even International Superstar Soccer 64, as it has definitely got more of an arcade type feel to the game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because that was always one of the cool things about the earlier ISS games, is that they had those elements in it and they were very playable in terms of their ease of use and practicality, although they wouldn't be as refined compared to more later games in the series. But the element of these type of games was their pick up and play nature, as they were very easy to pick up and play, but they were also competitive, as you could really get a feel for the control systems compared to other soccer games. The only most notable other soccer series would be FIFA, that warranted having very unique and dynamic control systems that you could really get behind and understand. Again, these control systems in the ISS series would later be perfected once it moved on to the Pro Evolution series. But the gameplay itself is very fast paced, it's very fluid, it's very dynamic. Again, it has that arcade feel, but it also does have hints of the simulation aesthetic as well, even though it does focus more on arcade. And it does present a challenge, but at the same time will provide a lot of fun. And it's one of those type of soccer games that is really good to play from a multiplayer standpoint if you're playing with a few of your mates, especially if you're playing competitively. It is a fun game to get stuck into, as there's more than enough features here with the teams that are available, the stats that would have been reflective of its time, even with the use of the licensed teams and the character rosters that are available. So you had more than enough there to keep you entertained, while you could also train your teams as well to get better with various stats, so that you could pick and choose the types of players that would be better suited to different positions and so forth. So it had a load of different dynamic aspects to the game that really stood out for fans of the soccer genre. The game is very reflective of its time, but at the same time it's also a very unique look into a very early game seen on the PS2, and it also helped to pave the way for what was yet to come thereafter, especially with the iconic PES series, that alongside FIFA would become the dominant forces within the football genre within video games. So it's interesting to go back and look at these old games from a nostalgic standpoint to see how they fare out. And in fairness, even though this game may not be as well polished, but it's still just as playable today as it's ever been, and it's still a lot of fun, and it has that pick up and play appeal that will suit a various type of player or even a casual player. And I would love to know your thoughts on International Superstar Soccer for the PS2, if you have played it yourself back in the day, and if so, what are your opinions on the game? Did you enjoy it, or maybe not so much? Be sure to share it down in the comments below, and if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be updated of future videos. And in the meantime, if you would like to see more content around similar types of soccer games also released on the PS2, be sure to check out the playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action. And I will see you all in the next one.